right, call the caterer. All bets are off. I said that the service today wouldn't last longer than an hour and 40 minutes. I gave my solemn word, and now it's out of control. Let us pray. Gracious God, as you have inspired your people in the past, inspire us all now, that the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts may be acceptable in your sight, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. 116 years ago, plus 1 month, plus 23 days, the Holy Spirit blew through Houston, Texas, on a clear Easter Sunday morning, giving life and bold hearts to an otherwise fragile gospel enterprise. Theirs was an enterprise that would aspire to just exactly what we aspire to: the high calling of faithfulness to God's worship and service, the high calling of making disciples for Jesus Christ. From now on, they heard Jesus say that day, "You will fish for persons." If we do not hear this call, we are launching onto a corporate enterprise that may be no different from any other corporate merger that you'll hear of in the business pages any day. But hearing the call of Christ, we are promised Holy Spirit. As we look back over the years since 1894's little band of fishermen and women worshiping in downtown Houston, a mental impossibility, though perhaps not a spiritual impossibility, I hope we can see what Jesus wanted his disciples to see on the clear morning when Luke tells us he met Peter, James, and John at the shore of the Sea of Galilee. William Barclay says Jesus could see what they could not see, and that is true of me today, perhaps of you as well. The fish that were spoken of being brought to Jesus were no longer going to be fish. Jesus miraculously pointed those rough, ordinary laborers to something larger, far larger than themselves, larger than what they knew or could conceive. At his command, they put out into the deep and dropped their nets again, even though they had toiled and toiled and toiled and toiled all night with no results. At his command, they expressed resignation. Oh, all right. Even though we've given it our best. Yes, we too have given it our best. Watch out. The shoal we may haul could break our nets and sink our boat with what happens at the command to put out into the deep. From this sanctuary today and from these particular blessed courts of the Lord, which we have entered with thanksgiving for 48 years, we will go forth to a new phase of the gospel enterprise that began 116 years, 1 month, and 23 days ago. And 2,000 years ago. Put out into the deep. It may be one of the most overused sermon titles, but it's still pretty scary. I'm 6 years old. I'm standing on the high diving board at the public swimming pool. I am directly above the deep and limpid water. I've been told by the older boys that jumping from this high above the water means that I need deep water below, so I won't be injured when I plunge into it. But I had never stood on the high board before. I'm feeling so dizzy, so frightened. I have to trust what 6 years of life has taught me, that it is good to take risks, that it is good trust others, that it is good to be put to the test for beneficial causes. And also, it's far too embarrassing to climb back down that long ladder. And I've watched 50 people survive the jump already today. So I jump. I lose control. I am immersed. I am safe. And that second plunge that day and all the others were pure exhilaration. This New Testament miracle of hauling in a shoal of fish that nearly broke the hand-tied nets of these villagers, it's the first miracle of Jesus in the Gospel of Luke that was not a healing miracle or an exorcism. The purpose of its preservation was and is to identify Jesus as the Messiah, who did mighty works, not unlike those of Moses, Elijah, and Elisha. Incidentally, speaking of exorcism miracles, I confess I did play around with a few of those texts for potential use today. But I decided that for my final Sunday, it might be a little too risky. Now, you might be wondering if I passed them up because I thought 8 or 10 of you fit the pattern of the Gerasene demoniac. But my real fear was that you would realize that I fit the profile quite closely. No, like Moses, whom God sent to supply manna and water in the wilderness, or Elijah, who supplied abundance for a widow and her son who were starving, or any of you who have heard of the abundant provision of life out of death, or of how much more mercy there is than sin in you. Like any of us who have tasted and seen that the Lord is good, when you grasp just one little morsel of what we believe is the real presence of Christ in nothing more than a morsel of bread that came out of an oven on Portsmouth Street 3 blocks from here at 1 a.m. this morning, we are worshiping the Lamb at that time who will wipe away all tears forever.